Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the commission. Today is Tuesday, January 22nd, 8 o'clock. We're in room, Town Hall, room 119. Tonight we have a general meeting, getting into a public meeting, and then go back into a general meeting. First item on the agenda is deliberation possible decision on the following. Proposed amendments to the Darien Zoning Regulations, COZR number 5-2019, put forth by Felix F, Callari Inc., doing business as BMW of Darien. Do I need to read this, Mr.?
No.
Okay. This is a draft resolution that we have. It's actually kind of short. It is a pretty straightforward resolution with two major points. One is to increase building coverage from 20% to 25%. And two is to increase the height of the building from 25 feet to 30 feet. The decision deadline on this is not until February 7th. So we have a little bit of time to go over it. Jennifer's not here tonight. I've got a couple of comments. If I could go over those first, since I guess I'm chairman. And then I'll open it up to the other commissioners. The couple items I had, number 6, it talks about the leased land, which is adjacent to the transfer station lot. Sorry, folks. That's not good. Anyway, leased land, I was originally going to say that we should say how big that leased land is, but it's a small piece of the overall existing dealership today, and it's on a lease basis.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what you said.
Number 6,
Okay.
it says BMW also leases land adjacent to the transfer station. I wanted to say how big that land was, but it's actually small in relation, it's not part of the application, so it's really, doesn't really much matter. The next thing I had was paragraph 13, the third sentence. The first sentence is just opening, the second sentence says, at that time, issues such as blah, 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 and then it says those would be inappropriate, and then it says issues again. I want to add the word in issues after those. So read those issues would be inappropriate to specifically address as part of the zoning application change. The commission expects to reduce such issues with subsequent application. That is that.
Meaning those issues
Yeah,
which
just saying.
would be
I
reviewed
hear
during site plan review or
Yeah,
during application.
Okay.
Okay.
It just says those. I thought I missed the
Yeah.
word.
No, I agree with you, but
I agree with you too.
Okay.
Those issues.
Next, number 15. The commission believes that the inclusion of performance standards and/or design controls related to the above within the proposed text amendments are not necessary at this time.
I don't remember that being part of.
That's a Jackie, the outside counsel, wanted to put in a bunch of controls. And if you read the next sentence, it says,
But then why not just strike it all?
well, the next sentence it comes, it's under neighborhood concerns. The next sentence comes in, no neighboring properties would be adversely impacted by the proposal other than provisions referenced in the finding as part of, any subsequent application.
I think I'd like to reconsider this paragraph before we
Okay? Next.
I agree.
Next, the only other item was, I'm on 16 now, findings consistent with the town plan. My thought is there might be a couple additional things in the town plan that we may want to reference here. What's in here on 16 is just the stuff that was added by the applicant. But I think some of the things I really liked in here, which were numbers 1 and 13, numbers under C1 and C3. But I think there might be some other things outside of town plan that we want to put in, and I would put that onus on Fred and Jeremy and the commissions. And
I think we need to consider the whole zoning regulation with the town plan overall as a whole, and make sure that it is consistent. If there are additional consistencies, we should include them.
well, it's what usually happens is the applicants will take pages out of the town plan
No.
and say like, this is it, and they attach it. I don't know why we did that, but you guys think we should get more stuff for that?
We can take a look and see if there's additional applicable sections of the plan that would.
Pro-business.
Right, what we can do is take whatever comments we receive tonight, work on paragraph 16 and 17, and come back to you
And
next week.
15.
And 15, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's me. Let's open it up to the field of the other commissioners. See if there's anything else.
I had a clarification or a question. The remark about the leasing the land at the town transfer station, is it clear that that acreage, whatever it is not included in this?
No.
So even if they didn't lease the land, they would conform to, and if this were granted, they would conform to it?
Yes.
Okay.
But we can clarify that.
Yeah.
The second thing,
I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, Jim. Go next.
okay, the second thing was in number 10. Isn't it a fact that any application, if this is granted and the applicant files an application to go ahead and do this, it's going to have to be reviewed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So should 10 not read that any future application will require review?
I'd say that's more accurate.
Instead of it is likely, because it was
Or
likely.
could.
Would it necessarily have to go to EPC?
It doesn't
I guess
say,
it depends where they work.
So,
But,
So maybe likely, but not necessary.
we'll modify it. We'll clarify.
Those are the only thoughts I had.
George?
The one comment I wanted to inquire about was number 3, where we say that we find that the differentiation of the 3 larger SP properties subject to this application is logical as it recognizes that the busy intersection of the Boston Post Road and Interstate 95 at exit 11 is an appropriate location to allow an increase in permitted intensity, as well as an increase in allowed use. Seemed to me that if it's a busy intersection and we're intensifying use, that seems contradictory. So I'm not sure we want to put it that way.
We'll revise
I
paragraph.
don't think I understand it.
That's it for me.
Okay. Harry?
so just getting back to my general comment that I made last time, it seems when we talk about 10, 11, 15, and some of the others, I mean, we're talking about, what's in front of us here is a zoning change to this lot, right? So that someone who looks at what is the zoning of this lot, say, 20 years from now, things like, there's a little bit of acreage that they rent from here, and like a lot of things are just specific to its current use today. I mean, am I right to think that do they belong in this document here, or, it kind of drafts maybe it goes through our decision process, but we're talking about we're not approving a site plan here. We're just talking about this lot's zoning. Essentially, we're just trying to match it up with the neighboring lot. We're just changing the zoning of the lot to be similar to those right next to it, which are, 30% coverage and 25 feet high buildings. Like, isn't that kind of all it needs to say, and everything else is a little superfluous?
I think that's a good point, which I think we should make clear in here, that one of their arguments that Mr. Flaherty and Mr. Gleason made was, when you look at the properties around it, other than Middlesex Commons, the CBD lots are much more intense because downtown is, that you have I-95 on one side, that we can make that clearer in the resolution if the commission wishes.
I just want it to be a clean document, so someone who reads it down the road, who doesn't know what
Right.
we're doing, can make sense of it.
The only thing I would tell you, the way these things are written, it's, the first half is like what the applicant did and what we reviewed,
Okay.
right? Then the middle part is the applicant's proposal.
So
Then
this
it
all
goes
will
neighborhood
end up in the
concerns.
new zoning regs.
And then when you get to the other part,
This is the resolution to draft to approve it.
and when it switches to now, therefore, the lettering usually changes from 1, 2, 3, 4 to A, B, C, D, E, F. So what you're really,
So this will,
what you're
once
really,
adopted, and will become.
hold on, Karen, please.
Yep, I got it.
So then what you're really just approving,
I understand.
all the other
Yeah,
parts just sit in the table,
got it. Okay.
right? Anything else? From you? Karen,
No, so quiet.
you good?
Okay.
But so I guess
The sense I'm getting is, the commission wants us to return next week with a revised draft showing these changes, and the commission will vote on it at that time.
sounds good to me.
Mhm.
All those in favor of that?
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Next. Now we're gonna go to the public hearing. First public hearing item is proposed amendment to the zoning regulations, COZR number 1. First of the year. Who's up first? 2020, put forth by Affordable Self-Storage, Inc., amendment to the business site plan application, number 293, special permit, 131 Hollow Tree Ridge Road. Proposal to amend section 544, note A, of the Darien Zoning Regulations, permit to put up to 50% of the basement area to be utilized for self-storage, restaurant, workshop, or rentable space accessible to customers in the 3.7A zone. All finished basement areas would be counted as floor space. Basements with finished floor space would not be counted as an additional story per section 544A. The full text of the proposed zoning regulation amendment is on file and available in the town clerk's office and the planning and zoning office for inspection, and online at www.dariencg.gov/PAD. Proposal to finish 4,896 square feet of the existing basement of the building to be utilized for self-storage areas, a wine tasting room and a bathroom. The 3.6 acre subject property is located on the west side of Hollow Tree Ridge Road, approximately 150 feet south of Heights Road, and is shown on Assessor's map number 48 as lot number 3 in the 3.7AH zone. Now, this is, listen,
Before we get started, I'm a customer. Should I recuse myself?
I'm a customer also. And I think I can view this application as unbiased,
So do I, particularly because I don't like wine.
because we're paying them, they're not paying us. This is a three-building property. There's a self-storage building in the back, which is pretty big. It's got like 3 towers or 4 sections, and it's got a 3-story building in the front, which the ground floor is the self-storage office, and the upper 2 floors are apartments. This application is solely contained within the basement of the self-storage building, and I don't remember why, maybe the applicant will tell us why. The basement is in the middle of the building. I don't know why that is like that, but, and I think we have Mr. Murray here to be our applicant.
Good evening, everyone.
Chime in anything before we
Nope, this is, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, this is both the zoning regulation amendment, and in this case, they've packaged it with the site plan and special permit because the nature of what they want to do, nothing really exterior, it's just a minor change to the interior. So when we met informally with Mr. Murray, we suggested packaging them together because by the time he shows you tonight what the concept would be, that's really the nature of this 5,000 square foot interior change.
So we're basically doing a zoning change in the site plan one shot.
One shot.
Got it,
It could
okay.
be 2 separate decisions or one big decision with separate findings, whatever that may be.
Before we start do they have a special permit? Like, what's their permitted usages of this property,
Of this property, it was the self-storage building,
right?
and then the other small building, which has the first floor office, the upstairs dwelling units, and then they also got approved for some commuter parking.
Okay.
And the
And
commuter
we don't
parking,
think this needs a special permit amendment?
well, that would be,
That's what it is.
that
Or
was,
is it all at one, as one?
right, the site plan and the special permit amendment, you're correct.
Mr. Murray?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Murray on behalf of the applicant Affordable Self-Storage, which owns the property. As you know, this is the self-storage facility over there on Hollow Tree Ridge Road, adjacent to I-95 and to the Avalon Apartments in the rear. So as Mr. Olveni pointed out, we're here tonight for a text change, as well as our special permit and site plan change as well. And the nature of it is there is a basement. It's 5,000 square feet, which, just to put it in perspective, the square footage of the building, so each floor is about 33,000 square feet. So on a comparison base, it's relatively minor. I know that in the text change, it's specifically pointed out that it can only be one half of the first floor, and obviously we're nowhere near that. Obviously, as a basement, it's already built. When we first came to you, this was a very unique property in that there were no sewers, very little. The options of what to do there were very limited. This particular use made a lot of sense, both from the applicant's point of view and from the town's point of view, especially with all the apartment housing coming in. So, and it's been so far so good. So we're coming back to you tonight in order to make better use of the basement. The mechanicals take up very little of it, so it's kind of wasted space. So of the 5,000 square feet, we're doing 4,800 and change of it. So it's just vacant space. It's not going to be overly fancy. It will be climate controlled, and there will be, which we haven't spoken about yet, a kind of a meeting room that'll be heated, which is only 300 square feet. You have a question?
It's a meeting room?
A utility room or two. I can show you a picture of it.
There's a picture of it, but the meeting might be a little, that's what it'll
It's
look
called a
like.
tasting room.
Yeah.
I mean, I just would like you just to be transparent here. Don't call it a meeting room when on your plan it's called a tasting room.
Fair enough.
And there's a woman holding a tray.
Well, the theory is
Like
wine
one
storage.
way.
It's not going to be a party room, as you can see. It's not. It's exposed concrete and whatnot, but it's 300 feet of heated space, primarily a tasting room.
Two other areas with glass walls, are those going to be contemplated to also be used as meeting rooms?
No,
No?
there's just the one meeting room or tasting room. But this will give you maybe a better.
Yeah,
Oh,
you need to be by the microphone.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you wanted to move that back a little bit, use the laser. Thank you.
This is a real good indication of how it's going to lay out. You can see the mechanical's very small, and the tasting room is only 300 square feet, with the rest of it for wine storage. But it's just an extension of the storage upstairs, and we hope that you will permit this use and allow us to proceed.
Can I ask you a threshold question?
Sure.
Do you remember why the basement is there and why it was so big? Was it supposed to be for mechanicals?
It was part of it. I don't think we knew necessarily what, we needed a basement.
Right?
I can, John, you might want to answer that? This is John Hertz, the applicant.
My name is John Hertz. I'm one of the owners of the property. Well, I didn't hear the question.
Why does it really have a basement? I'm just, with the mechanicals supposed to be bigger? Or-
Well, there is in fact a fair amount, there's a large sprinkler room down there. Our electrical panels are down there. There is a elevator equipment room down there. So it didn't cost that much more to build something 5,000 feet as opposed to 1,000 feet, once you go down and start digging.
Great.
And it was, the grades on that property were such that we were filling anyway, so we would have actually had to fill it in. So that's why we did it.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Can I hit you with another question?
Sure, of course.
And then, so this is gonna go in the basement, why can't it go in an upper floor space? Is everything else already taken?
It's already built out, everything above. The
Okay.
top 3 floors are already built out.
And this is gonna be climate controlled, which is the upper ones are basically not climate controlled?
Well, it'll be a different climate. It'll all be climate controlled. So downstairs would be a cooler temp for the wine, and then the tasting room will be 300 feet will be heated.
Okay. Because in the self-storage industry, there are some of the bigger facilities, which this is 100,000 feet effectively, have different temperatures, and some are, hyperbolic, and some are heated, and some are whatever they are. Okay,
Right, correct.
that's fine. So you're gonna be able to offer, if this guy's gonna be able to offer a wider spectrum of storage areas. and
Correct, and some of, I think we've been renting for over a year now, and the question has come up, do you offer this? Not sure if it's offered locally, but certainly in other parts of the country, it's
Great.
done.
Okay. Okay, are you good? Any questions from the field?
I was looking at 544A. This would apply to any property that is governed or covered by 544A, am I correct?
That's correct. This zone, the 3.7 affordable housing zone,
There's only one property in it.
it's just this one, at this time, it's just this one property. So this zone is just this property at this time.
Okay.
So it's only two, it's paragraph 544.13 within the AH 3.7 zone.
I mean, we're not gonna all of a sudden get a bunch of applications like we had for Brooks Brothers and all the rest of it, of all that.
That's a different zone.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's all I'm concerned about.
No, I'm fine.
Tara?
I guess it's self-storage, so who monitors people coming in and out of that basement storage area?
Do you want to speak to that? Yeah. It would be highly secured. We have two managers who live on the property, and the only way to get down to that lower level would be with a special fob or key, a code. You couldn't go from normal, or our other tenants would not be able to go down there.
But tenants who have wine storage down there
Mhm.
could bring people down to that meeting room and drink wine right adjacent to 95 and the Avalon Apartments any hours of the day or night.
Well,
I'm just asking.
yeah, from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, yes.
Is that the only hours they can access it?
Yeah.
It's 9 to 5?
The normal access hours are from 9 to 9 o'clock at night.
Okay. And that's controlled by their key fob?
Correct.
Okay. And do we limit how many people can be, because if people are going to be meeting in there, because this was not anticipated to be a meeting space or a social gathering space, are there adequate, I know there's a bathroom, but are there adequate bathrooms? Is there adequate, how many, will this be limited to a number of people? Like how many people will be limited to be drinking in this tasting meeting room?
Yeah, the permitted use would be 12, but it's not that large a room, and it's not going to be luxuriously appointed. The reason why there's a separate room is, one, for marketing, but more because that entire space is going to be chilled to be like a refrigerator. So the room, the 5,000 feet is going to be 55 degrees. And so when people go down there and they want to catalog their stuff or look at their stuff or exchange it, they like to go into a space that's 72 degrees.
Yes.
So it's not a room that people are going to be holding events there or, partying in and then getting in, that's not, it is the basement of a self-storage facility. It's not, it's not something a place I think people want to party in.
we need to make sure that there's controls around that, because it is close to a residential apartment building and 95 and a train station, so.
I understand.
I just think controls, and the key fobs will control that.
Yeah, their access will be limited.
If access is limited, I think that alleviates some of my concerns with changing, because I don't think your special permit did not permit gatherings or meetings of this sort before. And we normally ask a lot of questions when people are asking to change their special permits to hold additional meeting areas.
There is, to get into the,
I've never been there, so.
well, to get into the front parking lot, you don't have to do anything. I mean, I rent space there, my boat's next to there.
Yeah.
To get into the parking area, which is adjacent to the building, which is depicted on the site plan, not this one, a different one, you have to press in a code to get the gate to go up. And to get out, you have to press in the code to get the gate to go. Me personally, I do not have access into the building. I can't get into the building because I don't have a code or
I
key
understand
fob.
there's key fob. I just wanted to
Right.
make sure that access would be controlled and that there wouldn't be,
Right.
After hours, non-controlled drinking space available next to 95.
As soon as I go into it, it says, "Hi, Steve."
Okay,
So
I
that
just
was me.
wanted to make
Yeah,
sure.
no, that's fine.
One thing Mike mentioned earlier is this property is on septic. Doug DeVesta, engineer, has looked at the existing septic system to confirm that it's big enough to accommodate this use. Doug has provided information for the record certifying that the on-site septic system is of sufficient size. He's here to answer any questions you may have.
The only other question, not the only other question, one of the questions I have is, does the fire marshal look at this eventually, that there's access in and out?
The fire marshal did comment. Their comment is basically related to travel distances, and I know he's worked with Mr. Hertz, but Bob Bush's comments are pretty much that is, Bob Bush said, may have an issue as drawn with travel distance, however, can be easily resolved. So,
I believe that was,
Do you need like 2 means of egress to get out of it, or it's under 5,000?
I believe that was resolved with Mr. Bush because there was another doorway which I don't think he noticed the first time, so I think that's in the past.
Okay, because I know there's some, I forget if it's 10,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet. Once you hit a limit, you need 2 exits.
So
But that's gonna
I think
be-
that's okay.
That's gonna be accomplished anyway. Relative to septic, there's a bathroom, we're adding a bathroom, is that right?
Correct.
And that's it, there might be a sink, there's gonna be a sink in the bathroom, and as long as they said that's covered, I think we're good there. Anything else we're missing, Jeremy? Okay, you guys all good?
Yeah.
I would like to open up to the public. Anybody in the public want to speak to this application? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing. So move. Have a second? Have a second, all in favor? Thank you, folks.
Thank you all for your time.
You're welcome. Next item. I want to read the next one.
Back.
The one I got pulled.
Yes, that would be good. That way if someone's here.
Okay. Third one on my list is amendment to special permit application number 47-C3, Darien Community Association, 274 Middlesex Road, proposal to amend special permit number 47C2 to allow the Darien Community Association, DCA, to host an after-prom party for students of Darien High School and their dates. The 7.99 acre, plus or minus acre subject property is located on the south side of Middlesex Road at the southwest corner, formed by the intersection with Hollow Lane, shown on Assessor's map number 20 as lot number 42 in the R1 zone. This application was withdrawn on January 17th, 2020. So if anybody's here to see that application, the application was withdrawn. We have a gentleman at the podium.
We own the contiguous property to the DCA.
Can you state your name for the
My name
record?
is Stephen Antler. I'm here with my wife, We own the house and the 4 acres next to the DCA,
Okay?
and we're here to speak in opposition to the application. Am I to understand it's been withdrawn?
Yes, it's been withdrawn.
Is it? Okay, thank you very much.
Come anytime.
Good job.
You're welcome. That's what we call public comment. You don't have to cut it. So that was the application was withdrawn? Okay. Next, subdivision application number 625, land filling and regrading application number 475, Micah and Cecilia Donoghue of 765 Hollow Tree Ridge Road, proposing to subdivide the subject 5.03 plus or minus acre property into 2 separate lots respectively, 2.8 plus or minus and 2.2 plus or minus acres, and to perform grading and related site development activities. The existing residence is to remain on the northerly 2.8 plus or minus acre lot. Portions of the existing driveway are to be abandoned and be replaced with a new driveway to be located entirely within the new lot. The subject property is located on the west side of Hollow Tree Ridge Road, approximately 335 feet north of its intersection of Crooked Mile Road, and is shown on Assessor's map number 3 as lot 58 in the R2 zone. I would just like to state that I was at a party at this house last year. They're very nice people. But I can review this application unbiasedly. It's a simple subdivision application. There's a lot of wetlands on the property. And there was a couple engineers and site survey people and soil test people that looked at it. And it's also been through EPC.
That's correct.
The hearing was closed on EPC. Have they rendered their decision?
Yes, they did.
Yes.
Yes, they did. I think you have a copy, or you have in your file copies from the town engineer, the health department, copies from peer review engineer Joe Canis, and in November, I think Rich Jacobson sent in comments on behalf of the EPC. Did you get approval?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I have the approval.
Yeah, the point thing is this subdivision's going on for at least 6 months.
I think EPC had a hearing, and it's been going on since well before November.
Yeah, it says April 2012. Mr. Seymour, you are here.
Yes. Well, Mr. Seymour's not here. Yeah.
Will you introduce yourself for the
Yes.
record, please?
Mark Lebo with William Seymour and Associates. I'm here representing the applicants and owners, Michael and Cecilia Donoghue of 765 Hollow Tree Ridge Road. With us tonight is Doug DeVesta of DeVesta Civil Engineering Associates. As was stated, we're proposing to divide this 5+ acre property into 2 lots of roughly 2.2 and 2.8 acres. We've been through and have been granted approval by the EPC. There was also a peer review involved where Doug handled the EPC application and the peer review. Joe Canis is here tonight too if you need to speak with him as well. But all the comments that we had received from the peer review were incorporated into the plan and subsequently approved by the EPC. So the property primarily, there's an existing house in the north central portion of the property. That's in this area here. And the tennis court is here. And we have the existing driveway comes in from Hollow Tree Ridge Road and comes and loops around. A new driveway. The wetlands is highlighted in green, the upland review area in red. Now keep in mind, this is a concept site plan. There's no specific design for a house. Mr. DeVesta decided that we used a conceptual site plan for that with a pool and a 5-bedroom house. Both lots were tested for septic. We're able to accomplish that and provide each lot with a well. So we'll use the existing driveway opening to serve the new house. a good portion of the existing driveway would be removed. A new driveway would be cut in here to serve the existing residents, which again is to remain. And the primary subject of the EPC application was this wetland crossing in here. A significant amount of wetland will be mitigated with wetland added back in this area here to be included with the large wetland area in the back of the property, which actually will provide more functionality for that wetland rather than just this this finger that sticks out here, which is primarily maintained lawn and trees and things like that. So overall, we should have a better viable wetland and provide the necessary habitat for wildlife and things like that.
Could you just flip back over just so I
Yeah,
can
sure.
see the original? It just helps me visually. Okay, you can flip back now. I just wanted to put it in my head. Thank you.
Vanna?
Thank you.
On that theme for a second, Mark, I to do this a while, but I've never heard of in your letter, minimal wetlands with minimal function and wetlands with that's a functional wetland. I'd never heard of that concept.
I'm sorry, where?
I'm just looking at your letter.
Yes, in the narrative?
Right.
Okay.
It's the third or fourth paragraph. It said wetlands with minimum function and minimal function, and then a functional wetland. I've never heard of that. Which one's which?
The eastern 2/3 of the property, which is developed with a residence shed, tennis court, serpentine area, and landscape, maintained lawn areas, some of which are wetland areas with minimal function. Those wetland areas with minimal function would be this area here,
Okay.
which, as I said, is primarily now, and has been for forever, maintained lawn.
Okay.
So that's it doesn't really function as a wetland.
I got you.
And so by separating this here and providing additional wetland here to be combined with the larger wetland area here, we feel that we're getting a better overall functioning wetland back here by enlarging it and mitigating the loss of a minimal functioning wetland in the front.
Okay. I got
This
you.
is just conceptual, so ultimately it may not be developed that way.
No, the driveway on the northern lot is gonna be pretty much what they're asking.
Yeah,
So the driveway will be, so more improved, like, so that will be cutting off what we're now calling a minimal functioning wetland, will be cut off. But we don't know what will actually happen with the new subdivided property and how they ultimately develop it. They may not do conceptually what you're proposing.
But that's.
as opposed to what, I mean,
I don't
the
know.
only available area for development is there. So whether the house shape
I'm just
is,
asking.
so whether the house shape is slightly different or whatever the case may be, the area targeted for development would be primarily that area that's currently occupied by the tennis court.
So removing the driveway and shortening it turns what is now called minimally functioning into functioning? I just don't know.
No, we're offsetting the loss of any wetland due to this driveway crossing by creating more wetland to be combined
By
with.
shortening the current driveway.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, overall, there's going to be less impervious surface on the site than currently exists using this.
Because the two are shorter than the current.
Correct.
And because you're getting.
And because we're getting rid of the tennis court.
Okay, oh, okay, that's important, yeah, thank you. But we're adding a house.
Right, but the house and the pool, and the house, the pool, the new house, and its pool, if they were to do one, and any driveway that would be associated with that new house combined is smaller than a tennis court.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, tennis courts are big.
A tennis court's roughly 7,200 square feet, 60 by 120.
And how much is a pool, a driveway, and a house?
Well, in this case, I think Doug probably has the actual numbers here to give you.
Conceptually,
I'm sorry?
conceptually.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they could build anything much bigger, if that's what you're asking.
I'm just trying to understand.
I think just clarifying what Kara might be asking is, when you talk about the wetlands you're creating,
Yes.
those are being created no matter what happens conceptually going forward. Or is that not correct?
No, that would,
We'll
yes,
get a test for it.
that's basically what the EPC approved.
Right. So
Correct.
no matter what they conceptually decide to do with someone else decides to do with the property in the future, those wetlands are there for them to deal with when they go in front of EPC to build, because those wetlands are going to be new and existing.
Okay.
You said you're creating new wetlands.
Well, if.
I don't know how you go out, by the way, I don't know how you.
Well,
create
it happens, it's by, it happens, this isn't the first time we're
I'm new at
proposing
this,
it.
so you can tell me.
You know, we've brought it, we had Matt Pop of Environmental Land Solutions in Norwalk. He had the
But is that
wetland,
what-
let's call it mitigation plan, if you will.
And you plant
Um,
wetland plantings.
Oh, there.
Okay.
So, yes, a lot of new plantings going in the back.
But-
So what they're doing
but-
is taking this really good wetlands in the back. It's, when you imagine, visualize, oh, what you think a wetland is, that's that whole back area
Right.
behind the house. The front area is just someone's lawn that's been cut as lawn for years. So the EPC said, you know what, we're losing a little wetlands in the front, but we're getting better wetlands in the back. They're gonna remove invasive species, they're gonna put in new wetland plants. So the EPC said, this is great, from our standpoint, less impervious surface, better wetland, approved, great.
But I think Kara's concern was that a new owner wouldn't necessarily put in those new wetlands.
Well, they're gonna have to.
They would
They're gonna
have
to.
to, they would
So
have
that's-
to,
No, they would have to.
So that I think
Conceptual
yes.
plan, they would have to?
yes,
So I think that's
Yeah.
what you were asking, okay.
So
yes.
that's already been decided by the other commission.
Okay.
Someone says-
So in effect, what we're doing is, if we approve this, I'll call it the new lot,
Mhm.
it's gonna be encumbered by a whole lot of requirements related to,
The EPC approval.
yeah.
And
Thanks.
Right.
usually what happens for the conceptual houses is, if the commission were to approve it, they'll probably market it.
They-
Someone will come in, they'll talk about, well, I want to shift the house this way, turn it this way, whatever. And then we take what they want to do, and we determine whether it's consistent with EPC approval and P&Z. Sometimes people need to come back, different impacts to wetlands, or different regrading, or whatever it is. But it does give the property owners an opportunity to market it, and we take it from there.
And there'll be I don't know what mechanism, whether it's gonna be in the deed or the plan of subdivision or whatever, but we're not gonna end up where somebody says, oops, I didn't know. We've had that.
No, it'll be very clear, because it'll be, these approvals will go with the map that gets
Thank
filed.
you. I
now.
don't- That's not a suggestion that I lack confidence, it's.
Yeah, no, it's important to know that, the approvals all run with the land, and anybody that will come in to file for actual permits to develop the vacant lot will be subject to those things. And then if they want to do something other, the new lot's gonna have to be separately approved anyway.
Right.
Because this is, as you're concerned about, being a conceptual design. So if somebody were to come in with something different later on that they're actually going to build and say, hey, I want to do this or I want to do that, they're going to have to review it with EPC and probably
Okay.
with you folks as well. And it would be kind of more of an amendment to the approval that you're granting. So, and just as Doug pointed out and reminded me, just so that you know, the wetlands we're going to be creating are going to be greater in area than that which we're losing. So you've got the minimally functioning wetland that's going to be replaced with better wetlands and more of it. And I think also too, just, because we went through the EPC review and everything, reason really why we're here tonight is to have the zoning approved, and once you folks look at this and say, hey, all right, the lot meets the minimum lot areas, they can contain the square, they have the lot width, they have this, that, and the other thing, all with respect to the zoning, because the EPC's already given their blessing to the environmental elements of the proposal.
Right, that chip's already been approved.
Yes.
Okay. Keep going, Mark. What, do the existing owners use the tennis court at all?
Not anymore. Kids are all grown up and we got bad knees.
If you need to speak, so you gotta go.
Yeah. Do you want to?
No, he's fine.
Okay.
He's fine. Are you good so far?
I think so.
Okay, there's a bunch of questions that we have from guys like Darren Ostafine and
Sure.
the fire marshal,
Yep.
the health department, and then we'll get into Joe Canis at the end. Joe Canis is here, right?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah, we're prepared to answer those. Doug, you want to address?
Well, let me just go
I'm sorry.
to, I don't know how, when Darren Ostafine does some of these things, they're like shots over a barrel, but they're really, it's like an open-ended answer.
Well, a lot of them are just notes for the record. You need a street opening permit for a new driveway, so we probably put that in here somewhere. He did talk about the fact that there's no sewers, that it's on septic. And he talked about the septic system.
The two that jumped out at me was, this number 4, the sump pump,
Right?
and then the other one was, the new driveway, number 9. So it says petrol culverts can be installed to promote the driveway to maintain the connectivity of hydrology and ecology. The reason why, to me, I don't know if that was answered in Canis's letter, that's why it's kind of an opening question. This is Darren Ostafine's question, but maybe Canis asked it also. But on the new driveway on the existing lot, are you proposing to do what Darren Ostafine asked?
No.
For the record, Dr. Vest, professional engineer representing the applicant. No, we're not. For several reasons. If you visited the site, Steve, so you know the site, it's flat. And if we were to put the culverts and leave the driveway flat, we'd have to go down at least several feet. 12-inch pipe, 15-inch pipe, 1.5 foot of cover over it, you're down 2.5 feet down. Now you're creating a hole. Or the other way to do it is to raise the driveway up. Put the pipe on grade, raise the driveway up, so now you have a big hump into it. So no, we did not do that. In terms of drainage,
Hold on one second there. Is this letter is dated January 7th? Did EPC care about that? Number 9? Because the wetlands are getting moved, right?
They're getting disrupted.
Wetlands are getting moved.
we are creating wetlands. Again, the driveway is going across the wetlands that are here. And we hired Environmental Land Solutions, MapPop, to do the environmental on this. And we are creating a new pocket of wetlands adjacent to the wetlands in the upland review area. We're not going to take, and right now it's all lawn area, we're not going to disturb that wetlands area except for the driveway crossing. We're going to create new wetlands to the left, to the east of it, which is equal or larger than what we're taking away.
Okay, I mean, because Darien Ostwald's not any kind of ecological wetlands expert either.
So the home is just what, unattractive to the homeowner? Like,
It's, the EPC didn't require it, Joe Pop's not doing it, and Darren Ostafine's not an expert in it.
okay.
So he was really kind of, in my mind, he's talking out of his area of expertise.
And also, just to another point to that, is if you start putting pipes in there, water does come through it, now you created a point discharge versus a sheet flow going across the driveway. And we designed everything based on sheet flow.
Okay.
So again, you have, and then if the culvert is going to be, under the driveway here, heading right towards the house, but you don't want to do that.
Right.
With a point discharge and a pipe. And I think Joe maybe can be able to help you answer that question as well.
I mean, at the end of the day, Candace is our peer review guy.
Correct.
He's the guy.
And Joe's, we responded to all Joe's comments, and Joe came back with all his comments were addressed.
Right, I saw that, okay.
I think either way, too, if I might add, that either one of those options, whether you went up and over or down with the pipe, would be more disturbance than what we're proposing here.
Right.
Yeah, I just like the information to make sure we're addressing the points.
That's what I'm going over. What's the other item that we talked about? The one about the sump pumps, do we care about that at all?
We've addressed that.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm making
We've
sure.
addressed it. We've got an external discharge to a pump, to its own detention system for it.
Is that the new house or the old house?
That's the new house.
Okay. And
That was a comment, that was one of the comments from the chairman from EPC. They're always talking about the sump pumps, stuff like that, so we've addressed that.
okay. Does Ostafine's number 4, does that relate to only to the new house or also to the existing house?
Just to the new house.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, is there a sump pump? You have the Donoghues, the existing residences that have a basement or a sump pump?
You have full basement?
Yeah,
basement.
There's no sump pump. The Donoghues, they're here in the audience, they say they have a full basement but no sump pump.
Okay.
And no water
They
pump.
need it someday. They can have it.
Okay.
All right, that's that letter. The fire marshal would like the water main to be extended from the intersection of Hollow Tree Ridge Road and added a fire hydrant. What happened to that?
Well, I was able to get speak with the assistant fire marshal about that, and there are other ways to address fire protection for the property. Ultimately, I think without a specific developer of what they're going to do, it's not something we're considering doing or would want as a condition of the approval. And I would think that once a final site plan is done and somebody goes to build it, that it would ultimately end up being more of a building department issue than an issue for whether the lots comply with zoning or not.
Right, that's why I've never seen this request before.
Yeah, well, apparently there was another subdivision further up on Hollow Tree, and the water main was extended south from Talmadge Hill. And in talking to the assistant fire marshal, everybody thinks that really the thing to do is Aquarian should come in and connect the two. But there's really not enough customers there to warrant the cost of, say, Doug was estimating possibly $200 to $300 per foot to install a water line. And to extend the water line from Crooked Mile to, say, the north end of this property, we're talking something in the neighborhood of 700 plus feet at perhaps $300 a foot. It's a lot of money.
And one fire hydrant.
I'm sorry, and a fire hydrant. So some of the other options that could be explored would be a cistern that would be kept full and provide enough fire suppression for approximately 20 minutes. The fire department and the fire marshal don't really care whether the house burns down or not. They just want to make sure that everybody can get out of the house.
Right.
It has enough time to get out of the house. So if you sprinklered the house with water that was stored on site in some sort of an underground cistern, roughly, let's say 20,000 gallons, should provide enough time for a family to get out of the house and without harm.
Okay.
Are you saying that, having spoken to the fire marshal, that that's what he cares about despite his comments that are in the public record?
That what he cared.
I mean, you just said that
I
what he
spoke
cares
to the
about-
assistant fire. Primarily, the reason for having fire protection is to be certain that the residents of the home can get out safely.
Would they be willing to put that into the public?
I don't know.
I think the documents have to stand for what they say.
But it's so. What do you? I'm not sure. I understand what you're saying.
I think there's an inconsistency that they submitted a document, which is now part of the public record, that says a very specific comment.
Mhm.
What they
But
would-
it's not required.
I never said it was,
Right.
but they did submit comments.
Correct.
But there's
They
other.
say what they really care about is something else.
Right.
And I want to make sure that if that's what they actually said, since this is a public hearing, that's going on the public record. If they didn't say it,
Well, I don't have anything in writing. I can just tell you what my conversation was
Okay,
with them.
that's fine.
And another option would be to provide what's called a dry hydrant in the pond on the lot next door, and obviously that would require negotiations with that property owner to get permission to do that. So there are other acceptable options besides that which the fire marshal had suggested or recommended.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And Steve, there's one other point, there is a hydrant right at the corner of Crooked Mile and Hollow Tree. So there's a hydrant there, but it's not, it's a couple hundred feet from our, beginning of our property.
Okay.
Just a point.
Yeah, to add, just as far as Doug's saying, it's funny because when I spoke with the assistant fire marshal, he thought the hydrant was further down Crooked Mile, because I've said, there's a hydrant on Crooked Mile. He says, oh no, but it's way far down. You're saying.
No, Crooked Mile, not on Half Mile. On Half Mile.
On Half Mile.
Oh, so there's one on Half Mile.
On half, okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, because what they're looking for with residential properties is a hydrant within roughly 1,000 feet. 500 feet for commercial properties, 1,000 feet for residential.
Right, but you can still get fire insurance from Allstate without it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Covers the rate.
Right, that's different. The health department, they say everything's fine. The letter only acknowledges that the sets that were identified throughout the soil testing were required will be at the time of installation. Identified portable at that time. There's another letter we have, okay.
I mean, Darren did ask about a septic tank location, but again, there's only feasibility to demonstrate that properties can support septic system.
Right.
I guess getting back to your question about impervious areas, that was the reason I came up here, was to talk about the existing site as shown on Mark's plan here. On this plan here with a driveway, tennis court, and existing house. You got about 27,800 square feet of impervious area. And our proposal as shown here, we've got about 25,300 square feet, so a reduction of about 2,500 square feet of impervious area. So we actually, by taking the driveway off, taking the tennis court off, reducing about 2,500 square feet. And this conceptual plan here, the house plan is actually a footprint from another project I've done over years. So it's an actual house footprint, but it may not be the exact one that whoever buys this property will use this one, but conceptually, it's probably the kind of house you want to put on your L-shaped house because you're a long colonial, the side load garage won't fit on here because of the wetlands, the septic, and the detention system we have here.
That's actually very helpful, thank you.
The impervious surface on the existing house is, and just for the record, the maximum building coverage for the existing house as proposed is 4.07% of the lot on here, where you're allowed to build up to 20%. So the existing house, because I'm looking at the second half of Darren's question number 10. Removing the impervious of the existing residence came to the purpose of adding to the existing residence. But you're still 4.7% coverage. Okay, that's fine. Then the last thing was the wetlands soil sciences letter dated April 1st, 2019. The results of the events are subject to change until they're accepted by the EPC, and the EPC accepted it. Right? Okay. Question, start on this side this time. Carol?
Okay.
You good? Larry?
I'm good.
George?
Good.
Easy, okay. Guys, are easy. Joe Canis?
Joe Canis is here in the audience.
Okay. Joe, you wrote a 6-page letter. Looks like went back and forth a bunch of different times. The final answer at the bottom is that you're okay?
Yes, that's correct. Good evening. For the record, my name is Joseph Canis. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, retained by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Environmental Protection Commission to review the application before you tonight. I issued my first letter on November 1st. I had a number of comments related to stormwater management, sediment erosion control, and some miscellaneous comments about tree removals. The applicant responded to those comments, and on November 26th, I issued a letter, and all my comments were addressed. They made changes to the stormwater management system that I feel, after reviewing it, does conform to Section 880 of the zoning regulations. They meet the land filling and regrading requirements, and the sediment erosion control plans meet the requirements of the Connecticut Erosion Control Manual as well as the town's regulations.
Okay, so you're all satisfied?
I am satisfied.
Perfect, okay. The only other last thing I wanted to just say was that the engineer did do the fresh meadow approach to it?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's all clear too?
Yes.
Perfect, okay. Anyone else we're missing, Chairman?
Just the public.
Okay. Would anyone from the public like to speak to this application? Seeing none, I take a motion to close.
Make that motion.
Have a second? Second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Hearing's closed. Hearing's closed. Thank you. Thank you. That's right, thank you. Here's my sheet. There it is. Okay, page 2. Moving right along. Coastal site plan review number 165A, flood dam prevention application number 173A, Lawrence Stevens, 14 Raymond Street. Proposal to construct and install a small dock consisting of a fixed ramp, pier, and platform, and perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The 0.16 plus minus acre site. Subject property is located on the east side of Raymond Street, approximately 300 feet north of its intersection with Coconut Road, and shown on the Assessor's map number 36 as lot number 98 in the R1 foot zone. Chairman, what do we got?
You have an application for a dock. The dock has been approved by the Environmental Protection Commission. You also have submitted for the record January 7th comments from Darren Ostafine of Public Works, and a letter received earlier today from Matt Hessen, which I left on the table in front of you. John Hills is here. Right, John? John's here to present the application, discuss a little bit about the design. He got approval from the state DEP, talk a little bit about that, and how it's been designed the way it has. The commission is looking at it from two different aspects: coastal site plan review and the flood damage prevention application. The commission's looking at all the work, which is, obviously, the whole property is within 100 feet of mean high water, which is the coastal impacts, and then if you've been out to the site, the high part of the property is Raymond Street, and then it goes down to 5 Mile River.
Okay. Sir, can you please state your name for the record?
Yes, good
Welcome.
evening. My name's John Hills. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Lawrence Stevens, the applicant.
Okay. So you want to explain your application to us a little bit?
Yes, sir. Just basically, it's a small dock consisting of a landing, an aluminum ramp, struts extending from the landing footings to a floating dock located in the adjacent waterway. And there's not much more to it than that, sir.
Hey, Chairman, this is one of those where our jurisdiction's like 6 feet, right?
Right, it's very small because the part of the dock, John, help me out here a little bit. The part of the dock that is under elevation 3.4 would be in the state's jurisdiction.
Actually, yeah, my understanding is that your jurisdiction ends at the mean high water line, the surveyed mean high water line, which is shown on the plans. So basically, that's about where roughly the landing ends, and a portion of the ramp is located landward of that. And beyond that, it's state jurisdiction. Actually, the state jurisdiction extends to what is termed the coastal jurisdiction limit, by a higher elevation. But
There's some overlapping jurisdiction.
yeah, your purview is basically the mean high water line and landward.
Right, and the dock that we're talking about is 4 feet by 8 feet, I think.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the ramp's obviously floating.
The ramp is articulated. It's hinged at both the landing end and at the floating dock end.
Okay, and is there any other regrading going on the site except for this dock area?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, there's going to be two concrete footings. There's already two concrete footings on the site. This is basically the replacement of a dock that was previously on the site. The previous owner contacted me when he was selling the property
apparently there was some work at the adjacent property that involved removing trees. One of those trees landed on the former dock, and the former owner asked me to obtain the authorizations to replace that dock, and this is the outcome of that.
Okay.
When did those trees fall?
That would have been,
2018?
yeah, 2018, I believe that occurred.
How big was the previous dock that the trees destroyed?
About this size. I don't have the exact dimensions of the previous dock, but it was a small, similar sized dock.
Okay. You good?
I'm fine.
Questions?
Any questions?
Larry?
What kind of disturbance do you expect to build, or, put the concrete in there? Because that's a pretty sharp.
Oh, the footings themselves,
Yeah.
they'll be landward. Are you familiar with the site?
A little bit,
Yeah, there's a boulder, kind of a boulder face to the property.
Yeah.
These two footings will be landward. The two footings that are currently in place are closer to that boulder front. These two footings will be landward of those, so they'll be basically hand-dug sonotubes.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you won't need a truck or,
No, I don't think you can get a tractor down there, actually.
yeah, that's why I wondered.
You could, but you couldn't get it back up.
Sail it over. So you're digging my hand?
Yeah, yeah, it's frost line 42 inches.
Right,
And,
yeah.
I'm sure they'll encounter some rocks, as we are familiar with in this part of the country, but, no, I mean, it's pretty simple construct.
I dug my document. Okay, Darren Austin finds letter, doesn't say much of anything. Just wants an as-built survey at the end. Structural design not reviewed, that gets done by the building department. It's got nothing to do
You
with
may or may not need a building permit depending on the final design.
For decks, you need something, no?
Yeah, what we would do in a case like this is run it by the building official.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm good. Open up to public. Did they say anything?
I have a question, I guess. Do you have anything that shows how far out into the river, if you want to call it that there, it sticks? I mean, I'm looking at this drawing. Looks like a chart.
Go 2 pages after that. You're on the wrong application.
That's
Wrong document.
long
Wrong
neck.
application, Jeff.
I didn't do that one, you know.
I'm sorry, okay. All right, so it's not 132 feet, I guess.
No, that would put it well into Jacob Street.
I have no questions.
That's 18 feet.
Put it in the sales bar.
Road and Fuel might have a problem with that. Yeah.
All right, so it's 18 feet off of mean high water.
Yes, sir.
And it's 50, the floating dock area is gonna be 59 feet from the deck that's across the river,
Exactly.
which is depicted inside the site plan. Okay? Anyone in the public like to speak to this application? Please come up to the podium, state your name and address if you don't mind for the record.
Hello, David Pereira for 20 Raymond Street. That's the property that's just a little bit more north. I wrote a letter originally, and I have to rescind that letter at this point.
August 5th, that you.
Yeah, yeah. So I fully retract the letter. When I was first given the letter, I wasn't really aware of the effects on that property by the storm, the surges that come through. And since I've now sort of been in the area, the house isn't fully built if you've been out there, it's pretty clear that the storm surge is pretty dramatic. The previous dock that was there was maybe 6 feet at best, and now looking at this design with relation to the land, I'm very concerned with the proximity to my property. At one point it says it's 3 feet from the property line. Everybody in this room is taller than 5 feet. If you were to fall, hit your head, you would sue me. So that's a concern. The next thing is, I sent it to my engineers. They all feel that there's not enough clearance underneath. That's 6 inches. If there's any type of debris that goes down river, and it's kind of important because I'm looking forward to meeting my neighbors, and we're kind of in this process right now. I'm all on board with them replacing the dock with something of similar size and scope to what was there before, but going 3 times as large is a concern. The water volume that can go underneath is significant. It will severely impact my property specifically. It will potentially flood my land and the house that's being built there. The other concerns that will be is it will definitely impact something that's going out 28 feet. You won't be able to navigate that waterway. There's kayakers, there's birds, there's egrets, there's a whole bunch of different things, but it's creating a significant barrier. In fact, I don't know if I'm going to have to pay a toll to cross over his dock in order to access the water, but that's sort of getting to that kind of point. The 59-foot reference is really an arbitrary point. I don't really know where that point is in relation to the rest of that wall. Is it the furthest point? Is it the closest point? I don't really see it. It's very arbitrary. I'm not sure if an actual engineer built or designed this, or if we have actual stamp on this design. There's a couple other things that were a concern for me.
Can I
Yeah.
interrupt you for a minute?
Absolutely.
We have in our packet, we
Yeah.
have a thing called proposed detailed plan view.
Sure. 4 pages.
Do you have this?
I do, and that's where I see the 3-foot distance to my property line. And apparently, according to the United States of American College of Engineer, a deck that's a new structure should be in accordance with that USACE proposal, which is 25 feet from the property line. This is, yeah.
Hold on for a second. Any clarification?
Sure.
So, what this is showing, I think, and it's not a distance on it, but if there's a 3-foot marker.
That's the landing deck to the property line adjacent.
The 100-pound, the floating dock area, okay? Is that under our jurisdiction?
That is out, if you could see here, they show the approximate low water line.
There's an island there, and that island does have a mean high water line. And then it would therefore be in your jurisdiction.
Okay.
So the neighboring properties aren't really fully shown on that survey. That's why I'm saying that there's arbitrary markings that I'm having a hard time seeing where this dock is going to end. So if you don't mind me telling the rest of the story.
Well, let me just interrupt 1 second ago,
Sure.
I'm sorry. You said the dock is going to be, I think you said the dock's going to be 28 feet?
Yeah, if you look at from where the initial footings are to where the end of the dock, there's another measurement that shows 28 feet.
Okay, because I have 18 feet from mean hard water.
Is there any type of diagram that goes with this that can be put here? Normally, do you guys have one of those?
No.
Can I have?
Talking to me?
Yeah, do you have that like sheet so I can see?
You were provided with the plan.
Okay. Sure.
I have the sheet, but I don't have any.
I'll
I'll pick it up.
Jim, you got a second one for me? I'm going to approach the witness.
28 feet 5 inches from the very, from here to here.
Thanks, yeah. Thank you, thank you. So I see what you're saying to the 18 foot?
Hold on, let me ask Larry.
Yeah.
Where do you see 28 feet there?
It's right here, it's from the very beginning on the property, from here to here. See this 5 feet?
Okay.
Maximum, so
Yeah.
it looks like.
Right, I was doing
guess
the
it's
math,
gonna
adding them
move,
together.
yeah.
And then there's a boat.
See, I'm not, I mean, our jurisdiction is upland.
I hear you, I understand what you're saying.
What's in the water, we don't have jurisdiction over.
I think his point is, how is the mean water line determined? And I think that becomes an important jurisdictional point.
Determined by elevation.
So what I...
Determined by the surveyor, that's what this is for.
This is over
3.4.
Elevation 3 feet 3 inches.
Right. So the state regulates up to elevation 5.5.
Stamp on here.
That's why they need state approval.
Is there, but normally, wouldn't there be a surveyor stamp if a surveyor prepared this?
If a surveyor prepared it. John, you can certainly ask John how he got his dimensions and all that.
So,
But this was approved by, this is also already approved by the state, right?
But he's raising, his point is that he's raising the jurisdictional point. Saying if the mean water, he's saying that there's an island there that he's saying
That I
he
own.
has a discrepancy with the mean water line. I'm saying, Greg, wasn't that your?
so I own an island where that three number is, that's part of my property. And there's a mean high water mark, and the reason I know that is because Woody made me take a mean high water survey of that island so that I could build my house. When I built my house, this is the things that you guys required. $20,000 bond so that I replaced the guardrail. Multiple surveys so that I can show you where the house is in terms of the property discrepancies. I had to do a depth. I'm not changing the flood zone. I had to make sure that there's no animal species that are affected on my property. I would like the same sort of due diligence for a new structure on an adjacent property, which is sort of kind of what you guys are doing on Raymond Street, so I feel like that should be the same. I mean, I can go through the list of everything that you required for me, but basically,
What did you build? You
a
built
house,
dock or
a
the
new
house?
structure. No, it's a new structure. This is a new structure. It's way bigger than what was there. I mean, by a magnitude of 2 to 3 times. And I'm not against a dock. I'm all on board. What's up?
Upland or in the water?
Say again?
Upland or in the water?
The whole thing. The little thing was like a diving board. This is a full structure. And I haven't even lived there. You know, my house has taken 4 years to get through all the planning and zoning commissions and all the different things I've had to do. So, I'm all on board with the dock. Sounds cool. But it should be in size and scope with the property that's there. There's no big, giant, deep water fishing that's happening on that little space. Having a 28-foot launch doesn't change the size of the boat that's going to be available at a 6-foot dock. You're still only getting a kayak, a dinghy, or something of that magnitude. Because it's, yeah.
Let me, so,
Sure.
I'm just trying to clarify, so, your island, you said your island.
I never thought I'd have an island, but I do.
You, one, I can only dream.
Right.
So, your island is your property.
Correct.
It's not part of this lot.
But it
Right.
is within a reasonable distance of that expected landing dock that they're positioning.
All right, so I just.
Yeah. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm hearing
Okay,
it,
cool.
and I'm just trying to.
I got it.
I'll tell you what I'm trying to do right now is figuring out if there is any kind of jurisdiction here.
I
for us,
understand.
What you're saying. So, Jeremy, reasonable distance to his island, is that something that exists in law? I mean, is that?
Wouldn't you need a survey that corresponds with the island to make that decision?
The island is not shown on the plans.
It's shown on
These
mine.
plans.
These plans.
What about his plans?
They're showing his plans.
His plans aren't part of the
application.
His plans aren't part of this application.
We have them in our office, certainly.
So we have the information that we're looking for about the island.
That
I guess
he's
what I'm-
looking for, yeah.
No,
I'm-
we have it here in the office. I mean,
Right?
constructively, we have the information.
But he's not building a dock on this gentleman's island. He's building it on his property, and I believe our jurisdiction, thank you for pronunciation, ends at the high water mark.
Correct.
But I have a high water mark on my island as well, which is, I pay taxes on that high water mark, and my house is based on the fact that I can build 20% of the coverage using that island space.
I understand that, and I'm afraid to tell you that if you try to build a dock there, then I have jurisdiction. But I don't have jurisdiction.
Okay, but you're blocking my rights to build something there if you put this dock here. You're preventing me from using my land appropriately by allowing this within this distance from my land. This is going very far out.
But you lost me.
Okay. You're, because this 59 degrees, 59 feet, I'm not saying that that's actually the distance. This is like some arbitrary point where the word deck is. There's not that much space there. This isn't really an actual number.
I think that's the other problem. That's
That's
Jacob
across.
Street.
Yeah, that's right,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, wouldn't it be easier if there was like, when I had to build my structure, I had to put up a a proposal of the structure, like in PVC piping, to kind of get an image of what that looked like.
And the structure you built
Is a home.
Is your home.
Correct. It's
Is
not
your
huge.
home, and I'm pretty sure your home is
Yep.
on the land side of the high water mark.
Yeah, but
Right, and that's, see, that's what I'm trying to focus in on.
you're comparing a home to a dock, but I'm comparing a structure to a structure.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm actually trying not to compare the home to the dock.
Okay.
I'm trying to compare their locations relative to where this commission
The jurisdiction
has
begins
jurisdiction.
and ends.
And it's pretty obvious to me that your home is within our jurisdiction.
For
You
sure.
didn't build it in the middle of the river.
Correct.
The dock, I mean, and so the jurisdiction here was the state. And it seems to me the state is the one that's already weighed in on that. I don't know that I have the power
That's
to.
right.
But I guess.
I don't know that I have the power to overturn what the state
See,
has
I'm
already
actually
said.
kind of concerned with local control, so I think we know what this body of water looks like
I think
more than
that's a good
Hartford
point.
does.
I think
And I
I'm
think
with you on that.
it's difficult to, what was your mean water?
I can pull it up. It's, I mean, you
But
have it in your
I
office.
mean, this body of water to have different mean high water marks, it's a bit
Well, it's still by- it's
concerning
still by-
to me.
The only thing,
Only because I think here in this building, and we would know this body of water and how it's not really a, sailboat and kind of like the kind of vessels that are on it. It's not, especially in that location, the 5 Mile River in that location, it's not deep
No,
jumping and
this is-
swimming
yeah, this
in
is-
water. Where I don't know if people in Hartford would necessarily know that, but we would.
right, but the only thing we can rely on is expert testimony and
True.
stuff from experts.
No.
So I don't care if we know it and people
It
jump on
wasn't surveyed.
bridges, right?
A surveyor didn't do this.
Understand it, but if he wants to submit something, he's gotta
I'd be
submit
happy to. I mean,
from a surveyor.
at a bare minimum, I'd be,
You know, that this not's not, I mean, I don't know, we don't have setbacks of docks. There's no such, we don't have a setback of a dock.
So in this case, elevation 3.4 is the state, below that, the state jurisdiction.
Elevation 3.4, where's that?
Well, that's what
And that's-
The mean water line.
One is elevation
And
3.4.
I guess, are we making sure that we have a consistent mean water line and it's not
Well,
large?
3.4,
Along the whole river.
Is it, I guess,
And
I don't know who did this.
It says it right on the bottom.
Where?
David, are you saying a
Richard
portion
Lawrence
of this
Steve.
proposed dock is within mean high water
Correct.
of your island?
that's correct. Yes. The landing particularly.
yes, and Dr. Pereira is correct. The landing, the 4x8 timber landing, which is
Right.
shown on
Mhm.
the proposed elevation, does extend into your jurisdiction, what you're reviewing right now, because you can see where they talk about approximate coastal jurisdiction limit, elevation 5.5,
Correct,
and you see that line.
correct.
That area there is what's in your jurisdiction. You're looking at the impacts of building that timber landing and that, a little piece of the ramp.
Right, which is 4x8. We've done 50 of these things in the last 5 years.
so,
So we're talking about the 4x8 timber landing on concrete footings, which is above it, and then once you get below the mean high water mark, it's out of our jurisdiction.
So the most we could say,
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
you finish your thought before I
I'm
start.
gonna ask you a question. So, I'm gonna ask the applicant at the same time. So, for your concern, sir, you think it's too close to your house?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, you would be more than happy if it got moved south?
I would be happier if it was moved south.
I mean,
That's for sure. But I would also be very content if it was a little shorter so that the flood issue isn't a problem. It's only 6 inches from the water, and if debris which comes down, didn't know this because I haven't really been spending that much time, but there's big debris that goes down. It's way bigger than 6 inches. If it gets stuck underneath this dock, it's going to flood my property. That is a concern, and I think it's one of the things that you guys are looking at. Yeah.
So you're, like, just, I
Yeah.
appreciate that, I want to make sure I understand. Your property is downstream?
Upstream,
Is
immediately upstream.
So that these boulders and stuff are further downstream?
That, if I could approach, I could see it.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I mean.
That's the dam.
That's the dam?
Yes, that's downstream.
The boulders are where, downstream or upstream?
Yeah, so his property is here.
Right.
He's upstream. So what he's worried about is that, because of that debris gets stuck on the dock, under the dock, and basically creates a dam. If
Creates a
I'm
dam.
saying this correct?
Yep.
And so he has, so part of his point is that the additional 59 feet, that it says is from the end of the dock to the other side, is not a number he's confident that is true.
And as well as the angle. This is creating a 90-degree angle to the
There's
water.
an angle.
There's a
There's
water.
likely- and I know this is an entirely different town, but on the other side, it's a masonry seal. It's not like, you know, it's not like that's the way the land was. I just, somewhere along the line, this guy went and filled it in and built himself a nice little flat lawn and stoned it in, so, you know, I mean,
Styles.
so, I mean, that's, I'm not a hydraulic engineer, I can't tell you if stuff coming, I mean, I've seen this river forever, because I used to live in Norwalk. I used to drive by it every day home from work, so I know what you're talking about. I've never even, frankly, I never thought you could put a dock on in this area, because it's so little. So I don't know how, I mean, you know, I mean.
Look, I'm for a dock. I'm just not for a dock that's this big. I'm for a dock that's not at this 90-degree angle. Maybe turn it away a little bit so that it allows more clearance. And maybe something that doesn't have this huge landing that's right next to the property. If somebody falls, you're putting me in liability by having it so close.
It's not, the bottom line is not in our jurisdiction, right?
The part that Dr. Pereira just referenced,
Part of it is, part isn't.
part is not.
What's in that, what's in there?
What part is it? The 14 feet?
Right, the area that we talked about before, working landward down from the house and the deck, you have a 4x8 timber landing on concrete footings,
Right, that's our jurisdiction.
which is what
Got it.
Mr. Hiltz referenced earlier. That is in the town's jurisdiction.
Correct.
And then you can see that's elevation 5.5, and then
I've got a 3x14 aluminum rim.
and then you have the ramp and
I mean,
part of the ramp.
Okay,
Okay? That's it.
That's it.
The ramp, part of the ramp and the landing area.
That's correct.
That's it. We have nothing to do with the 100-pound anchors in the 6x16 floating dock ramp, right?
That's correct. That's the state's jurisdiction.
Correct. And the 3-foot part that you're worried about is the 16x6 floating dock that is close to the property line, which we're guessing it's 3 feet.
That's part of my concern. There's also there's also the, was it me to hold on or was it?
No,
he was telling me to.
Okay.
So you can talk.
All right, so there's the flood issue with not too much space underneath the dock if debris gets stuck there. There's the proximity to the property. There's the angle, right, that creates a 90-degree angle right from the water flow. And there's just the size and scope of this replacement. It's not a replacement. It's a totally new structure.
I
get it. It's
You're
not
allowed
an
to build
intersection.
new docks.
I'm
In
all
our
cool with
town,
the
you
new
can
dock.
build a new dock wherever you can around the water.
Sounds
Right,
good.
spanking new.
But-
Can I clarify a question too? Because we're talking about I'm gonna ask about
Sure.
the dock part.
Sure. Which part, the
So-
floating part or the?
Floating, yes, the floating part of the dock.
Sure.
Thank you for that clarification. But no, so, I mean, essentially, everyone's property line ends at the median high tide mark, right? His property as well as this property. So, really, the floating dock part, you don't have property 3 feet from it because that's the river.
But he's
I
got
can
his
certainly
island.
check. I mean,
He's got his
maybe the answer is we just make Mr. Stevens get a survey. Maybe that's
That's
the answer.
it.
Just say. Now, what he's submitted here is based upon a survey. You can see that on the previous drawing.
From
You might
2001.
have a survey.
From
Part
2001.
of the application.
Where is it?
Okay.
Could I just inquire quickly, a
Sure.
little bit more about the angle you were talking about?
Right, so the water's, yeah,
It's a 90-degree angle to the shore, I guess, is what you're saying, right?
that's correct, it's creating an L.
And you're suggesting maybe a turn of the angle, what would you do?
Give it more sweep so that the water debris won't get lodged and create an immediate backflow right into my property.
Wouldn't that create more of a damming effect into the middle
No,
of the river?
you're thinking like creating a acute angle. I'm talking about an obtuse angle to allow things to flow down river more.
Okay.
Well, I'm just thinking, the only thing, if we have jurisdiction over the concrete footings, we could
You
probably
do.
suggest that they be turned a little
You do have,
to create a different angle, if that would really help the problem.
that would definitely help.
So if we caused the, I don't know how to describe it, the concrete footings to be turned a little toward the south,
Well, I don't know if you have to change the footings, but just the direction of the way the gangplank goes out would just be,
well, it's not so clear we have jurisdiction over that. Oh, the only thing we got jurisdiction over, I think, is the footing, the timber landing.
got it.
Now, if we could turn that, is that what you're saying?
That would definitely help with my concerns and the engineer's concerns of flooding due to
What engineer?
Race Coastal Engineering, who designed the house and was
Whose
overseen.
house?
Mine.
Your house, okay.
Yeah, and was overseen
What I
by
would
Jill
suggest is
Stute.
that you have them do a report.
By all means,
It's gonna cost you money, but.
But I don't care
We
about
don't, because you're saying it's
I
gonna.
care about the
damage
fact that
and
it's
all
gonna
these
flood
things.
the house,
We
yeah.
can't, we can't take your word for it unless it's an
Understand,
engineer.
no problem.
Okay. We heard all your concerns. I think we're good. We're gonna move on to any other person that wants to speak, if you don't mind.
Could I have the spelling of the last name, please?
Sure, Pereira, Papa, Echo, Romeo, Echo, India, Romeo, Alpha.
That's the first time.
Okay.
Oh, for that.
It's in here. Actually, no. Here you go.
We've got a lot.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak to this application?
I would.
Please, take
Hi.
your name for the record, please.
Susan Shaker Brownlee,
Okay.
Can you spell your name, please? Last name.
And where do you live, Mrs. Brownlee?
Brownlee, and I'm at 10 Raymond Street,
Okay.
which is south of Mr. Stevens.
Okay.
I've lived there since 1998 and I'm a lifelong resident of Darien. My house is 3 up from the White Bridge, and I live right on the dam, the boulders you were referencing, Old Mill Dam. I guess it was 5 Mill River. So I'm about 100 yards upstream from the bridge, and it's about 60 feet across to the Rowayton Fuel. And Mr. Hyson over there on the other side also. I guess you have a letter from him. Above this dam, there's a small tidal pool. It's about 1.5, 2 feet deep. This is where this ramp and dock is going to be. I mean the float. Except at high tide, it's refreshed with the incoming tidal flow. It's brackish water, about 3 or 4 feet deep at high tide, and it's constantly being fed by all the estuaries from the rivers up like New Canaan Country Club. It goes all the way up there. The tidal pool's at the foot of the Stevens property, and it's a living natural sanctuary. for all manner of wildlife, shorebirds, migratory birds, amphibians, schools of fish, so much that we call it a spawning pool. One day I saw, I swear, a snapping turtle this big. They come down from Chasmer's Pond. They lay their eggs along the shore, on the Darien side at least, I know that. When the Stevens property was originally on the market, it was advertised as having a dock. I guess it's about as big as one of these tables. It was. And it was just like a pier that maybe there was a ladder at one point, but the 20 years I've lived there, it was just a dilapidated old dock that was hanging to one side. No one could ever go on it. So I don't know that, maybe you could tie a canoe to it, something like that. Dr. Pereira was talking about the ferocity of the white water that comes down from the north during and after storms. And people stop by, I guess, Mr. Warbler, you probably have seen that turbulent water, and all kinds of stuff comes down from, garbage cans and chairs and trees and things like that. And they get stuck on the dam for a while. And so what I'm worried about is that this structure that's going to be built out into the middle of this little tidal pool that you can just walk around in is going to be obstructing the 2 fingers of 5 Mile River around this duck island. It surrounds it, and so the flow, when people come up the river in their kayaks and paddleboards and little dinghies, which I have all of these things, you can go up a little at high tide past Dr. Pereira's house to the house beyond Dr. Pereira. But if this long structure is snaking across the tidal pool, I don't see how you're even going to navigate up there. It's going to create an unnavigable stretch that has previously been just gorgeous. And this is what I'm worried about. It's a tremendous hazard to other properties should it be torn loose during or after the storms that come along. It's an obstacle to kayakers who enjoy the upper reaches of the river at high tides. And it's an extreme impediment to a natural sanctuary and breeding pond for wetland and river wildlife. I think it's evident. Mr. Stevens loves the water. He has little kids. I have grandchildren and brought my children up there. And I think everybody should be able to enjoy this beautiful area. But I think it should be scaled down and in a safer position, as Dr. Pereira said, for these terrible flood situations that have been happening, Sandy, etc. It's a very fragile area. So that's all I have to say.
Got it. Any questions for Susan? Good? Okay. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to this application? Please, state your name. Your address, if you don't mind.
It's difficult for me to hear that the EPA, the Environmental Protection, and the DEP have approved this. I think I'm a little concerned that be investigated a little bit more. I had a chat to talk with Sandy McDonald, who was our Coastal Advisory's concern, and from that conversation, I said to Sandy, would somebody really have approved this? This is, my name.
Yes, please.
I'm Marion Smith. I live at 2 Raymond Street, and I've lived here in Darien since 1974 in Norotan Bay, obviously very much involved in the water, and moved in 2008 to Raymond Street, remodeled it, and it would not have occurred to me, even though kayaking is my sport and one of the very important reasons that I moved there, to put a structure into the river to obstruct it. I'm at the very end of the Raymond Street with the bridge next to my property. It just puzzles me as to how something could be put out into the river at this point. So I'd really like you to have some sort of opportunity to review that that's been thoroughly investigated there. I've lived through Sandy and have seen the debris coming down the river unobstructed. I can just imagine what would be caught by this structure out into that area. The length of it, I just heard about this tonight, so I haven't really looked at the width there, but I have kayaks since 2008 regularly up into that little pond, and it would seem to me that the length that we're talking about is going to be going into the Norwalk side of the river. It's just not a very big area there. If you're going to put an extension this far, it's going to kind of take that. Now, when I kayak there in a 10 to 14 foot kayak, you couldn't fit 2 kayaks across that space. So I'm very concerned, number one, that, and I don't know that that's your jurisdiction, as you said, about the wildlife, the all the other kinds of things that are there, with having a obstruction of that tidal pool that's there. But I feel very strongly that those things should be looked at more closely. I agree with you, Ms. Gately, that from talking with Sandy, that the state may not be totally aware of our situation, of the effects of high tide and low tide, and also of surges such as Susan had talked about. So, thank you. I do remember, that there is a little platform kind of on the edge of his property that was there and was all doing that. I think that would be a wonderful opportunity to restore that and restore something that would, number one, give him very, very good access to the river. You can only move down the river at high tide from that spot because of the flood that's there. But putting something out into the river, I think, is going to provide a lot of difficulties for wildlife, for particularly, I can just imagine the debris, as you mentioned, that's going to get caught on that area. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You're south of what we're calling the Boulder Rock Seawall Dam thing? Is that what you call this thing here?
I'm calling it the boulders because that's what it's called down there.
Yeah, I wish we had some pictures of.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
So if you're south of that Boulder set of rocks dam thing, how do you get over to go north? You can only go over on high tide?
Yeah, you can at high tide, you can kayak all the way up to your property, up to that property. You can kayak all the way up to there. At low tide,
You can walk it.
you can't even. It's a waterfall coming down.
Right.
So you can only leave your property and Mr. Stevens' property when the tide is up. You can't
you're not an expert, but I have a boat also, and around here, tides are 7 to 8 feet.
Yeah.
So does it change 7 to 8 feet?
Yeah, it's probably even,
Not in the pool.
but the river, see, there's
So it depends where you are.
there's rocks.
Because I'm just going back to the other issue earlier where the other gentleman said that it's only 6 inches that it's gonna be on the ground. So if
depends
it's a
on-
tidal, it's changing.
Fred and I have only been, Fred and I went to the site. These folks have all been there more than us, but it became apparent, like Kara mentioned, at low tide, you can almost walk to Norwalk. At a very low tide, I imagine these folks can
Yeah, you're gonna walk
almost walk to
downhill
Norwalk.
though.
High tide, or during right after a storm, it's white water and.
Oh,
you
yeah.
wouldn't- Right, you wouldn't go near it. So it varies greatly, depending on the situation after a storm, before a storm, high tide, low tide. There is a tidal effect here.
Right, that's
It might not be as great as if you're on Long Island Sound, but there's a little bit of a tidal effect. I believe we can check with Mr. Hills.
There's
Okay.
there's a significant tide effect.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
there's-
horrendous tide effect. It's
It's
like a
I didn't know if
different.
it was, no one ever said it was tidal, and I wasn't 100% sure it was tidal.
Oh, it's,
It's a tidal.
yes. I either have a huge bank down to the river, or the river is at my bank and sometimes a few inches above,
Okay.
depending on the tide and the moon. And
So if you come back from your kayak on low tide, you're walking.
Right.
yes,
Gotcha.
actually, yes.
Okay.
Even I, at the very end of it, have to watch the tide. 2 hours before or 2 hours, I can't get through the thing. Our lowest point is right in front of the Citgo's gas station, but I wouldn't be able to get up the river at low tide.
Okay.
No, not at all.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? to
Yeah, I know
something?
you want to get out of here.
No, I know.
Bruce
We
Hall,
got plenty of time.
10 Raymond Street.
I'm sorry, you get your last name.
Hall, H-A-L-L.
Thank you.
You're 10 Raymond Street?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perhaps we can learn from you. If you are at the White Bridge and you go north upstream, there are 3 houses, Marion's, the Lori's, and Susie's, and then the dam, and then the property that wants the raft, the float. There's a reason why the 3 houses north of the White Bridge don't have docks, thank you. And that is, it can't withstand a storm. It's force 5 rapids. And they've been there for a number of years. So it's a cautionary tale to this gentleman and also to the Stevens. Maybe we can learn from you. I don't know how it was approved. Maybe it was done at Christmas time. But as far as the environment, it's a spawning ground. And as far as river safety and navigation, the dock really has to be redesigned. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Is Mr. Hyson here?
He's in Rhode Island, unfortunately, he couldn't make it.
A member of the audience said that Mr. Hyson, who wrote the letter, is in Rhode Island. Thank you.
Chair, I have a question. I know in previous applications where there were permit applications or site plan applications that were close to another city or town, we consulted with that city or town. There's, the Springdale Athletic Club is coming.
We referred this to NOAA.
Oh, we did, okay, that was
And
my
to
question.
WestCog, and in fact, that, in the file, WestCog, the regional planning agency, did send comment, saying basically that they were not going to comment. That's what they said.
Gotta love it. I know, that's what they're.
I just want to make sure that, like,
No,
given
he-
the proximity
he was
to
gonna
a
do that.
neighbor, and that we consulted with them, I just
Right,
wanted to.
we sent it out as required to the Norwalk Town Clerk.
Okay.
So that would hold on a piece of paper.
And so if it goes to WestCog,
Please, yep.
the, like, Norwalk bodies that may have an interest in this will be notified through the WestCog
Well,
body?
WestCog's comments of December 18th, thank you for submitting the referral. The opinion of WestCog staff is that the proposal may be of interest to the city of Norwalk. Thank you for submitting the plans to the city of Norwalk already.
Oh, it already went to Norwalk, perfect, okay.
It
And
went-
the city of Norwalk had no
They did not
comment?
comment.
I just wanted to make sure that we
Okay.
had done that. I was
Yeah,
certainly.
thank you for pointing out.
Anybody else in the audience like to speak to this application? Okay, any comments from you guys?
That was my question.
Okay. Is Dr. Preach, are you there? Can you come up 1 second?
Sure.
I love the mindset to try to keep this open for you to submit something, which would be a survey of your property, to put in the application,
Wait,
because that might have something that you have.
Well, we certainly have Dr. Carrera's survey. We can submit that if you want. It's
Okay.
from,
There's
You
currently
don't
a
have
new
a survey
survey.
of this property.
do I have a survey of 14 Raymond Street? I don't know. We
Okay.
can ask Mr. Hiltz. Mr. Hiltz would know.
Okay, let's ask Mr. Hiltz.
Sorry?
Mr. Hiltz, can I speak to you 1 second?
Take all the time you want. Everybody else has.
Yeah, nice job. We're looking to see if you have a survey in file for the property?
The plans you were presented were prepared by a digital file provided by the survey, Wayne Arkema.
Okay,
I do not have a hard copy of that survey. I received an electronic copy from him.
could you submit an electronic copy of that survey? In PDF form? I mean,
I guess so, yeah.
give a little time.
Probably could do that.
Okay, because I would just like to match up the survey with the other document that's in here. These pages aren't numbered, but I'll look at the proposed detailed plan view. Right?
The pages are numbered, so down in the title block on the lower right-hand side.
Title block of the lower right-hand side.
Should give you a page
This-
number of number. There's 4 pages of plans, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Proposed detailed plan.
It looks like summer, it might just be the.
Sheet 4, Steve, bottom right there.
You have a date, you have a sheet, and you have a revision number.
Sheet 4.
Oh, sheet 404? Yeah.
I have 2.
It's June 6, 2019, sheet 404?
Yes, sir.
What I'm looking to try to do is match up the survey to this document.
Very good. That's fine. I basically take that you are not comfortable with my plans as represented here.
Exactly.
Okay, so if I present you with the survey, and the survey and my plans jive, does this commission have any other concerns?
Not that I know of at this time.
Very good. All right.
Because I also want to look at the other survey from the neighboring property.
You want me to include that in the record?
Please.
Well, yeah, I've got some concern that
Right.
the timber landing's too big and headed in the wrong direction.
But see, the curve, the angling of that?
Well, that's what we gotta
That's an
figure out.
expert.
Yeah, I hear
You
you.
need an expert to say it's on one spot.
I'm just saying I have concern about it.
Great. Okay. So, I would like to keep the application open and not close the hearing. Everyone okay with that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So, can we keep it open and get a new date?
Let's find the next available date.
Sir, you designed this dock, right?
Yes, sir.
Have you thought of angling it towards,
The downstream location?
yeah,
Absolutely not, and I'll tell you why.
okay,
If you are familiar with the site and if you visited the site at any time not at high tide, and you understand that this place is tidally influenced, but the tidal influence is restricted by the Boulder Dam to the south of the property.
great,
That being said, there's a plunge pool at the location of the proposed floating dock. The plunge pool being the outflow of the western side of, I believe it's referred to as Duck Island.
Yeah.
There's 2 streams coming down on the 5 mile. The easterly side goes towards Rowayton. The westerly side comes down by Dr. Pereira's property, passes that property, and comes towards the applicant's property. At that point, the plunge pool from the outflow of that side creates a deeper body of water. South of that plunge pool is actually a mound of accreted soils. So if you were to locate the floating dock anywhere south of its currently proposed location, you would basically be putting that floating dock atop those accreted soils, thus basically restricting its ability to float up and down. Now, if there are flood concerns here, which is not your purview, but I will address them anyways,
thank you.
that would restrict the ability of the floating dock to go up and down, thus creating a potentially larger damming effect, if you will. However, that is not your purview. I'm just doing that as a courtesy.
The issue that may be of concern to some people in this room about a damming effect created by the landing, anything on that side of the property line south of Dr. Pereira's is pretty inconsequential. Obviously, if there's flooding in that area, there's going to be flooding of the nature that goes around that landing as well, correct? The floating dock and the ramp are articulated. They will not basically be able to trap anything underneath them because there will be water flowing beneath them because the tide will have come up in the flood event. So really you're talking about an 8-foot by 1 foot landing that may or may not trap some debris, but at the same time you have trees south of here that would also trap debris. You have a dam that would also trap larger debris, as noted by residents of the area who have said they've witnessed debris trapped by that dam. In terms of the design, it's interesting that one of the commenters noted that there was a dock there for 20 years, and yet there's suddenly concerns about a new dock that is more substantial than the previous dock becoming a hazard by breaking away, while the other one that was there for 20 years did not break away, but was damaged by Dr. Pereira's landscapers, apparently, who were clearing trees from his property and landed one of those on the old dock. So I don't think the flooding is a concern here. I'm not a hydrologist. My experience in this matter is I have over 30 years preparing permit applications of this nature. I'm a former dock builder. Full disclosure, grew up in Rowayton, used to play on that dam. I was there before the houses south of the dam were built. I understand the concerns about some people in this room about the restriction as to why there's no docks of those properties, but if they called me up and said, could I have a dock here, by right they could. That's the law. In terms of the process by which this dock was authorized by the state of Connecticut's Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, an application for a 440 dock general permit registration was submitted to that office. It was reviewed by that office. It was authorized by that office. In addition to that office, the Army Corps of Engineers received a copy of that registration. They approved the application as well. The concern of the Army Corps of Engineers is navigation. As the plans will note, we extend 14 feet beyond the mean high water line. There's an approximate distance beyond the proposed floating dock's waterward face of 59 feet to the opposite shore. 59 and 14 is 71. 71 divided by 4 is roughly 16, 17. 17. So 1/4 of the river is for the east side, 1/4 is for the west side, half is for the middle. We provide that half by this design. That is determined, it's sufficient by the Army Corps of Engineers.
You said the Army Corps of Engineers approved it?
Yes, ma'am. That's part of the record.
They reviewed it and they said that it does not meet the need to
They
get
issued a
approvals.
general permit authorization. 7 August 2019, file number NAE 2019-02089.
Yep.
Again, my understanding that this commission's purview is the portion of this project above the mean high water line?
That's correct.
Very good. You will be provided with the requested survey. I ask that this be bumped up as soon as possible so my client does not undergo any undue delays. And that if it's found by this commission that the survey jives with my plans,
Jives with your plans.
that there's no further questions along those lines, then hopefully we can move forward with this.
We will try.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
further questions?
No, we're good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I'd like to make a request to Dr. Pereira in terms of.
Sure, we didn't close.
Okay. Can I do that?
Dr. Pereira, do you mind 1 second?
Sure. I'm going to assume, although we haven't discussed it, that
you can talk to staff and understand what else we might need.
Sure, I'd be happy to help. You know, the gentleman behind me mentioned he's not a hydrologist, but you've heard plenty of people tell you about the volume of water. Yeah.
Let me just ask that included in whatever you and staff agree are gonna be submitted the next time we get together, I'd like to urge you to provide a chart, if one exists, of the far northern reach below the, or up to the dam.
You want me to do a survey of the
No,
water?
I want you just to know a chart, if it goes up that far, that shows where, what do they call it, Duck Island you've been talking about?
The island that's
Yeah.
deeded,
Yeah.
there's a survey with the mean high water that was requested by Woody that has most recent markings and flagged for that, for
So
the
I
island.
can see where Duck Island is and where the two sides are, and where the.
It is, but you won't be able to connect where that island is with the images of the dock because the survey that they have doesn't connect with any of the adjacent properties.
We'll figure it out. I've been
Okay.
doing this for
Figure it
30
out,
years. We'll figure it out.
I trust you.
Okay, that's all I have.
I'm not that
Chair.
old.
Thank you.
Good?
You good?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this meeting's adjourned till, right?
Well, let's,
We haven't picked a date yet.
we're gonna find another date.
It's not adjourned, whatever the special.
It'll be continued.
This is for you, sir. Mr. Hiltz.
February 25th?
February 25th?
That's the earliest you can have me, and that's the earliest it'll be, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Karen?
I just didn't think that was that far away.
Sorry?
I didn't think that was that far out.
Well, certainly next week would be too soon
It'd be
for
too
us.
soon.
So- And then
I
after
could
that,
provide you with the survey
We have.
tonight, when I get to my office. But, you know,
it's up to you. If you want to do it,
I'd do it next week, because you're getting the survey from your office on Dr. Pereira's rate.
Yeah.
And he's providing us the survey. What are we waiting for? We've already got an agenda for next
We have an agenda already for next
So-
week.
let's just stick with the 25th.
Okay.
February 25th?
Yes.
February 25th, that would be 8 PM. I believe it's in this room, but just let me check. Yeah, I believe we'll have the heat on by then.
Wow.
Wait another month and we won't need it.
8 PM in this room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll submit it. I'm leaving.
All right, next. Okay, coastal site plan review number 331B, flood zone permission application number 382B, Jeffrey and Jill Stute. There you go. 214 Long Neck Point Road, proposal to remove an existing dock of the property, construct and install a new dock further north of the property, consisting of a fixed pier ramp and a platform, and to perform related site development activities in the regulated areas. The 1.55 plus or minus acre subject properties located on the west side of Long Neck Point, approximately 1,500 feet south of the southernmost intersection of Pear Tree Point Road. It is shown on Assessor map number 61 as lot number 17, located in the R1 zone. It's another dock name.
Yep.
Yes, this is a little different situation. This is a dock almost 2/3 of the way down Long Neck Point Road. Mr. Stute already has a dock, as you can see from the submitted plans. There's already a dock on the property. He has built a new house. This is the former Zangrillo property. The house is in the final stages of construction, launching, fixed, and Mr. Stute was kind enough to show and put a little stake out there, the center line of the proposed pier, and that's marked out at the site along the existing stone wall. This dock as well has been approved by the state of Connecticut DEP as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. It is well, the dimensions are shown on the plans. We did refer it out to the states, and obviously they've approved it. The only no other permits on this end.
All right.
We have the same mean high water level issue of
Right here,
jurisdiction?
what's interesting is there's that wall, which is right on the water, which really is a nice, and then I'll call it landward is a lawn, just lawn, and then once you get on the other side of the wall, you're getting into state jurisdiction.
So the top of this dock is towed into the rock wall.
Yes,
That's
that's
covered.
correct.
So there's really no landing area at the top side. I mean, I looked at the plans, I didn't see the landing area.
One side of the wall is us, on the other side of the wall is them.
Pretty much, within a foot or so, I believe.
Okay. Sir, can you just state your name for the record?
Yeah,
And-
Jeff Stute, I'm the applicant.
Okay, and you're gonna move your old dock up. Was the old dock in here, Jeremy?
Yes, it's shown on one of the plans, I can't remember which sheet, but it clearly shows the existing dock, which is, I'll call it, to the southern part of the property. This
Yes,
dock
ma'am.
would be pretty much closer to the northern property.
I mean, to remind the group, this was a property that was subdivided. The Zingrillos had a larger property, and this dock was in the middle of their property. And upon subdivision, it was right at the property line. So we're moving our dock to the north, and my understanding is that the owners of the other property are in process of submitting approval to build a dock to the south.
That's correct.
Okay, 4 and 5?
I
Got it.
just can't remember what his names.
Yep, okay. So this one has no landing area and is going out to one and south. Jen, you had some questions on this one before?
No, it was just a source of confusion.
Okay. Larry? I'm sorry, George?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Ladies first, Karen?
I guess my similar question, which is, I know this is sort of similar to, that was much closer to Norwalk, Springdale Athletic Club was much closer to Stamford. I don't really think this is super close to, it goes closer to federal, land that water
Right.
covered
We refer
land
this
that
to the
is.
state, but not to
But
Stanford.
we don't find any need that Stamford or Norwalk or any of their town or jurisdiction would have a camera.
Right, we only refer everything within 100 feet.
And this is it's about a mile from the nearest land across to.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We don't have a, we don't have a.
Check with Huntington.
Yes, George is concerned.
Okay, so there's no landing, there's no landing area, so we don't have to worry about that. It's just the dock going out there. That's it, right? What am I missing?
Yeah, in this case, almost the
The
entire
dock
is within state jurisdiction. There's a small part within town jurisdiction, but very small portion. And the existing dock would be removed as part of this.
Yes.
Well, the existing dock's not even on his property, right?
Part of it is.
No, the existing dock is actually on our property. It was right in the middle, and we changed the property line in negotiations, so we do own the current dock, and it will be removed as part, it's actually a condition of the state approval is that it gets removed.
Okay, does anyone in the audience like to speak to this application? No. All right, motion, entertain a motion to close?
So moved.
We have
Second.
we have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Commission will act maybe as soon as next week.
Yes. Next. Landfilling excavation regrading application number 474, Michael and Molly Young, 68 Peach Hill Road, proposing to regrade the western portion of the property behind the existing residence to create a flat lawn and construct a new retaining wall along the western property line, construct a new parking area on the west side of the existing driveway and perform related site development activities. The 2.52 plus or minus acres subject property is located on the south side of Peach Hill Road at the terminus, at its terminus approximately 0.35 miles west of Mansfield Avenue, is shown in Assessor's map number 6 as lot 133 in the R2 zone. This is what I call people in their backyards making lacrosse fields and soccer fields with their kids. We have a lot of these in our town. What am I missing, Jeremy?
This is actually interesting, it's, the property's on the south side of Pear Tree Road, and you can see where, on the survey that's in front of you, where the house is relative to the property lines. This is actually a cut project, because they're cutting into that slope, which is to the west of the existing residence. They're gonna build a wall which is basically 4 feet or less in height, which will kind of retain that western boundary. But basically, they're cutting the mound in the backyard, if you will, the sloping area in the backyard, flattening it out, taking the extra material off-site and just building a small retaining wall. Bruce Eckerson is here. He's done some of the design. Dan Mazabras from Odd Jobs is here to talk to you a little bit about what they're doing. There's going to be a lot of new landscaping put in along that western boundary line, which will provide a nice buffer. But basically, it's cut. And I think, Dan, you were telling us that no fill will be trucked in for this project. It's all going to be trucked out.
Correct.
Okay. Please state your name for the record, sir.
My name is Daniel Mazabras with Odd Job Landscaping, and I'm here representing Michael and Molly Young of 68 Peach Hill.
Could you spell your last name, please?
M as in Michael, A-Z-A, B as in boy, R-A-S.
Thank you.
Okay, so why don't you just explain to us how much cut and filling you're doing?
All right, so as Jeremy said, basically right here, we're going to be cutting all of this area out. Roughly about 500 yards of material we're going to haul out. We've got a lot of trees that are in the way. They're either declining or they're dead. So we're going to take out quite a few trees. We're going to leave all the good specimen trees along the back of the top of the property. And then we're going to build about a 4-foot retaining wall. It's going to be 4 feet pretty much through here, and then it's going to taper down in some of these other areas down towards the ends, so it won't be quite as tall. And then essentially what we're going to do is just sod the whole backyard, and this whole upper area here is going to get all planted, and we're going to put in dense screening for the neighbor's driveway to screen that from for our client. So
the height of the wall, is that it's the highest point, is that under 4 feet?
Yes.
And is it going to be an engineered wall?
It doesn't need to be because it's under 4.
It's under 4 feet.
Yeah.
Great. That's the trick that everybody goes by. It's in the rules. It's a loophole. It's a loophole. You know, use it when you can. Okay, 500 truckloads going out. How many trucks do you think?
It's 500 yards, not 500 truckloads.
Right. I'm sorry. And how many trucks do you count?
There's about 25 yards in a truck. So, what's that? You got 20 trucks. That's it.
20 trucks.
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we need to know? It's pretty straightforward. We see these things all the time.
Yeah, this is a minor project because you're just working on that one side of the property.
Right.
And the rest of the property not being touched.
Right.
There is a new parking area.
Right, correct.
Correct. We're actually, that's right. We're gonna actually add this parking spot here. For additional parking for the cars so they come out. And the way the driveway is now, they have to kind of back out and then come around the circle. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be much easier for them to back out and then drive.
Does that driveway have drainage?
It does not, but it's under the requirement of the amount of impervious surface.
Okay. Jim?
I have nothing.
George?
It will be impervious though? That parking area?
Correct.
Yeah, nothing,
Karen?
No, and we don't anticipate, given the grading change, that they'll have any impact on neighboring properties.
No, actually, we're going to slow the water down by leveling it.
Okay.
So it'll actually make it better.
Thank you.
How many trees do you think you're taking out and how many trees you're putting in? I can count these, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably taking about 35 trees or so, but the majority of them there's nothing to them. They're pines that have limbs that are 40 feet up in the air, and they're actually hazardous, so we're going to take those out.
We had an old chairman that didn't like people taking out trees at all, even dead ones. So,
But you're adding.
You're adding about, looks like I counted 30-some trees. Okay. Anybody in the audience like to speak to this application? Seeing none. I turn the motion to close. Pretty straightforward.
So move.
Move a second. For a second, Myron's second. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Try to get to this next week, maybe?
You would have done some of these tonight. if
Thank you,
if
thank you.
were overboard. Okay. Next, last but not least, landfilling and regrading application number 473. Manglu and Andrew Gardner, 15 Wilson Bridge Road, proposed to fill and regrade southeast portion of the property to create a flat lawn area, construct a boulder retaining wall to protect an existing tree, and to perform related site development activities. The 0.71 plus or minus acre subject property is located on the east side of Wilson Bridge Road, approximately 330 feet east of its intersection with Holland Tree Bridge Road, and shown on Assessor's map number 46 is lot number 164 in the R1 half zone. Jeremy, what do we got? Another soccer lawn.
Well, actually, in this case, the lawn slopes north to south, the backyard, and they're going to make the slope less gentle, if you will, with all the regrading in the, I'll call it the southeast corner of the property, basically, which would allow them to reduce the slope in that area. There is an area which our staff went out and looked at. Rich Jacobson said that it is not wetlands, it's basically just an underground pipe that just comes to daylight and then goes into a pipe on the neighbor's property.
Where's that, Jeremy?
Right here, you can see that this dashed line, and it says existing 8-inch CPP, right?
Yep,
Right
I got
here.
it. Yep.
So if you go out to the site, there's that pipe that probably runs underneath most of this property, but it daylights right near that tree.
Okay. The 12-inch maple?
12-inch maple, and then it goes, when it hits the neighbor's property, it goes back underground.
Okay.
And so the regrading is not going to change the direction of the water overland flow. There's no new impervious surface, and they're making it a little less, in certain areas, a little less steep.
So Jimmy might explain this little pipe to us.
Jim Kasutis, professional engineer, is here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay.
Good evening.
Sir.
You took all the work away from me. But
That's what we try to do here, man.
We'll do
try
it
to
again.
figure out in advance and keep it going.
So Jim Kasutis Engineering LLC, representing the owners of 15 Wilson Ridge Road. As Mr. Ginsberg explained to you briefly, it is an excavation fill permit, basically. Well, we take out the excavation, just the fill permit. The idea is to flatten a portion of the southeast area, and then create a 3-to-1 slope down to an existing grade very close to the property line. The property is not flat through here, through the remainder of the northern part of the backyard, but it's fairly flat. But in the area that we are proposing to fill, it does drop off. So we basically proposing to take this sloped area, pushing down closer to the property line and flatten this out. We're not modifying the historic flow patterns over the surface. We're utilizing this loose boulder wall along the property line here, the eastern property line, to bring this up 2 to 2.5 feet against the property line and basically push the water back into our property and create a swale through here, just like it does under existing conditions. The grade on the eastern side of our property is already about 18 inches higher than ours. So we are basically filling maybe a foot higher than what the grade on this side exists today.
So it's 18 inches higher, but you're filling in 12 inches, so it's still 6 inches higher.
No, we're filling in about 2.5 feet. So we're filling 12 inches higher than this existing grade.
So how's the water not flow out to that guy's house?
Because we are pitching it back into our property and then down.
Towards the playground?
No, the playground is higher. We're pitching it from the east to the
house?
west, basically, yes. If you look at the existing contours, they kind of V-shape this.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
So the water comes through here historically, and that's what we want to maintain. We're
So
creating a swell basically along that wall to keep the water from going to the neighbors and continue going downhill.
I got you.
Eventually it'll go to the neighbors, but not to the east, to the south, where historically it's
It already
before.
goes. Just keep it.
Is that legal, Charlie?
Sure, they're not changing the direction.
I know.
But they're creating this.
They're keeping
There's one-
the swales on the swales inside the rock wall to keep it from going east, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And we're mimicking the same drainage pattern, it's just raised and then dropping off.
Understood. So it was always going south to 13 Wilson Ridge.
Correct.
Right now, Jim, there is a little nuance here, because if you look at the contours, they're not straight north-south. It's pointing a little towards the southeast, towards the tree there.
That is correct. But then they turn perpendicular to the line, creating this swell right in here.
Where's the swell?
Right through here.
Great.
And that's what we're trying to make.
Oh, okay, I see, because you have a dotted line on that swell, right?
Well,
Says
there
15
is,
foot drainage easement?
yes. I was gonna touch upon that next.
Go
After I
ahead.
talk about the grading.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
That's okay. So, yes, there's a 15-foot wide easement that starts in this area and continues down through two properties. This is 15, number 13 and 11 Wilson Ridge, before it enters the catch basin in the street.
Okay.
So the easement was provided here basically for these neighbors downhill not to obstruct and block the water and impact our property. So the easement starts here basically and flows downwards.
I was gonna say it starts there, it doesn't go north.
No, it does not. Because there was apparently an old spring house. You don't see these days, I guess, but during the subdivision phase,
I got
I
those
can't
last.
see that.
it's small. I can bring it closer to you.
You're jumping in there. So where are we?
We are here. This is our property.
Okay.
This is our property. This is the well house, the spring house. It shows a little flow of water here, and this is where the easement starts.
Uh-huh.
And it flows through these two properties and into the catch basin. And everything flows this way. So, if anything, if these guys were to develop their lots and try to block the swell, it would impact us. There's nothing we can basically do to change, to
Right.
impact the downstream properties.
So it's never going east. Okay.
Yes, so it's never going up, it's going down.
And that's a recorded plat note, number 8, is that part of the record?
Yes, 2860, this came from
Right.
the top clerk's office.
What's that part? We can answer that.
That's in our record? for
Well,
this
Jim
one?
can leave it, because then it's part of the record.
I can give you a better copy or
Oh,
give you
that's
this.
fine.
That's cool. All right, so we're not worried about that, and then you said it's not gonna go east, so we're not worried about that.
Right. And we are proposing to, obviously the flatter part that we're filling up in here, we're proposing to have that as lawn. And then we provided a planting plan for the sloped area, which is included right in here. Which will help aesthetically, the owners like the plantings that the landscape architect chose, and as well, it's gonna stabilize the slope. And of course, there's gonna be a silt fence along the perimeter of the disturbance, and we're providing a mud tracking pad to the north of the house for the dump trucks.
Okay, and what's with this PVC pipe? The 12-inch PVC pipe, do we care about that thing?
I would say we can add a condition that no heavy equipment will go into the easement to impact it. The trucks, the dump trucks cannot make the turn and come all the way back here and dump.
Right.
So they would have to dump in this area, that's why the stockpile area is there.
Got it.
So any other equipment would have to be light enough not to impact it. And again, if we do impact this, it's only gonna cause an issue on our property.
But why is it there? Do we have any idea why?
That's the,
There's a natural spring where this easement starts.
there's the pipe there.
Okay. And
That's what
somebody-
it drains. It drains groundwater basically at high groundwater season.
Did somebody put that pipe in at one point in time in his life?
I do not know.
We don't know, but she's there.
I don't think there's a record of that.
Not that,
Just did it.
The Tokenique Indians.
No, they were plastic back when they were around. Let's start on Kara's end. Any questions for this applicant? Mr. Warble?
No questions.
All good.
No, sir.
All right, Trevor, what are we missing?
No.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak to this application? No, just the people there that want the yard for the backyard, for their kids? All right, gonna be good, easy?
I hope so.
You got it, me too. Entertained a motion to close? Karen, second? Jim, all's in favor? Aye, hearing's closed? Hearing's
Decide
closed.
next week or the week after.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that's the end of the public hearing. Yep, now we're back into the general meeting. So we're going to say any closed hearings at this time, time permitting. I vote no. Anybody else vote yes? All right, good, okay. Thank you. Calendar update next meeting. The next meeting is January 28th. We have an executive session with John Loisos talking about whatever he wants to talk about. We have a general meeting. And February 4th, we have a planning meeting.
February 4th or the 11th, we're still not sure yet.
Okay.
One of those will be canceled.
One will be canceled, okay.
One will be.
Anything you want to add to the calendar update, Mr. Director?
No.
Okay. Any other business requires 2/3 vote? I'm not taking any vote. So there's still no business. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have Jim, we have Karen. There we go, all's in favor. We are adjourned.